In the city of Flint, Michigan, Diamonique Shardai Jackson, affectionately known to her friends as Pi, was a vibrant 22-year-old young woman. With her outgoing personality, Diamonique built a peaceful life centered around her family and close friends. Among her social circle was Alexander James Aydelotte, a 20-year-old young man who lived in the same area. The two maintained a normal, casual acquaintance, much like many other young people in the American Midwest. However, late on the night of March 28, 2025, in the nearby area of Lansing, an encounter between these two young people in an enclosed space became the focal point of a grave incident. The quiet night of Michigan State was quickly shattered, marking the beginning of a homicide investigation that forced local law enforcement to step in immediately. Yet, what transpired inside that car parked by the roadside that night went far beyond anyone's imagination. On the night of March 28, 2025, the space inside the car parked by the roadside in the Lansing area was consumed by a suffocating atmosphere. Starting with back-and-forth arguments, the atmosphere between Diamonique and Alexander Aydelotte quickly escalated into a violent conflict. In a tight space of just a few feet, harsh words broke out continuously, pushing tension to its peak. Losing all control, Aydelotte decided to silence the argument with the most ruthless act. He covertly reached down and pulled out a handgun he had concealed on his person. In a cruel moment completely without warning, Aydelotte pointed the dark barrel directly at Diamonique at point-blank range. Despite the victim being completely defenseless and trapped in the driver's seat, Aydelotte decisively pulled the trigger. A deafening gunshot shattered the quiet space inside the vehicle. The bullet struck Diamonique directly from a distance of just a few feet, causing her to collapse on the spot. The ruthless impulse arising in that instant turned a spontaneous argument into a painful taking of a human life. As soon as the victim collapsed and lost all consciousness in the driver's seat, Aydelotte's initial coldness quickly turned into panic. He had no intention of stopping to check on or help her, focusing solely on a single goal: erasing any trace of his presence. Aydelotte hurriedly opened the car door, bolted into the dark night, and quickly fled the scene, leaving the victim behind with a fatal wound inside the silent car. However, what remained at the scene after the gunshot ceased quickly caught the attention of those nearby. Just minutes after the deafening blast tore through the night, residents living nearby and passers-by quickly noticed something amiss. Approaching the car parked by the curb with its engine running, they were horrified to discover a young woman slumped in the driver's seat, completely unresponsive, surrounded by pooling blood. Panic quickly set in. Immediately, an urgent call was connected to the 911 emergency dispatch after 10 p.m. The caller frantically reported a shooting that had just occurred and the critical condition of the victim inside the vehicle. The information was instantly broadcast over the Lansing City Police radio system. At this point, wailing sirens began rushing toward the scene. Just minutes after the emergency call, multiple patrol cars from the Lansing Police Department and Emergency Medical Services, EMS, rushed to the scene with sirens blaring. Upon reaching the vehicle stopped by the roadside, officers immediately drew their weapons, closed in, and quickly assessed the situation to secure the area. Inside the cabin, they found Diamonique Jackson slumped in the driver's seat with a close-range gunshot wound, completely unconscious. Medical personnel quickly extracted the victim from the car to perform emergency first aid and transported her immediately to Hurley Medical Center. However, the severity of her injuries was too great, and she succumbed to them. Recognizing the exceptionally grave nature of the incident, officers immediately put up yellow caution tape, establishing a perimeter extending dozens of feet around the vehicle. The warm engine, the driver's side door left ajar, and the pool of blood on the driver's seat were the initial signs confirming this was not an accident, but a dangerous, sudden homicide. At this point, the Criminal Investigation Division and forensic specialists stepped in to uncover every remaining trace of the scene was completely cordoned off. The Crime Scene Investigation Unit and forensic experts from Michigan State law enforcement began their examination in strict accordance with criminal procedure protocol. Each area surrounding the vehicle was measured, photographed, and mapped in detail before any physical evidence was collected. Investigators marked the locations of spent shell casings found on the pavement, while documenting bullet holes and impact marks on the car body for subsequent ballistic trajectory analysis. Every piece of evidence was sealed individually to ensure the chain of custody remained unbroken. In parallel with the crime scene processing, the vehicle was towed to a specialized forensic facility for a closer examination of mechanical traces and bullet trajectories. Experts utilized the analytical findings to determine the direction of fire, the relative position between the shooter and the car at the time of the incident, and cross-referenced these with the evidence gathered at the scene. At Hurley Medical Center, despite the doctor's emergency efforts, Diamonique Shardai Jackson was pronounced dead due to the severity of her injuries. The body was subsequently transferred to the medical examiner's office for an autopsy, as required by law. Forensic findings determined the cause of death to be gunshot trauma, with severe internal organ damage as the direct cause of death. The autopsy results also helped confirm the nature of the wound and provided a critical scientific basis to cross-check against the physical evidence recovered during the crime scene processing. These forensic results quickly became an important foundation for investigators to reconstruct the sequence of events and step-by-step establish the criminal liability of the shooter. Immediately upon receiving the forensic results, the Lansing Police Department's Criminal Investigation Division rapidly deployed a multi-pronged investigative approach. Initially, detectives did not rule out any hypotheses, including a violent robbery, gang conflict, or a random shooting targeting a driver. However, upon a thorough examination of the scene, Diamonique's personal belongings, wallet, and phone remained intact inside the car, allowing investigators to quickly rule out robbery as a motive. The direction of the investigation immediately shifted to focus on the victim's personal relationships. Through interviews with Diamonique's family and close friends, police compiled a list of individuals who had been in contact with her on March 28. Among the names recorded, Alexander James Aydelotte, a 20-year-old young man who was acquainted with the victim, emerged as a key figure requiring specific verification. To construct an indisputable logical chain, investigators began digging deep into the digital data infrastructure. They issued search warrants to retrieve cell tower data covering the entire crime scene area during the time frame of the incident. GPS location analysis and network signal connection results revealed a striking match. Aydelotte's mobile device had traveled alongside and been present at the exact coordinates of Diamonique's car at 10 p.m. This signal then rapidly departed the area immediately after the gunshots rang out. In parallel with the location data, detectives conducted a review of numerous closed-circuit television (CCTV) security systems along the road surrounding the scene. Extracted footage captured the silhouette of a young male whose height and build perfectly matched Aydelotte, leaving the vicinity of the parked vehicle in a state of panic, hurriedly vanishing into the night. Combining digital evidence, cell phone tower data, extracted camera footage, and witness testimony confirming a prior dispute between the two, the investigative agency completely eliminated hypotheses involving an unknown suspect. All physical and logical evidence converged on a single name: Alexander James Aydelotte. A solid suspect profile was established, creating a firm legal foundation for prosecutors to request an arrest warrant from the court. At this moment, all eyes and tracking forces focused on the whereabouts of the fugitive. As the initial evidence gradually came together, law enforcement did not have to deploy a prolonged manhunt. Unlike many homicide cases where the suspect attempts to flee or erase their tracks, Alexander James Aydelotte was still present in the area of the incident when the first officers arrived at the scene. Immediately after securing the situation, officers quickly turned their attention to Alexander. Having determined that this was a shooting and that the suspect might still be armed, every approach was conducted under high-risk protocols. Officers maintained a safe distance, repeatedly issuing commands in a firm voice, ordering Alexander to stay where he was, keep his hands visible, and refrain from making any sudden movements. Alexander complied with the police commands. Once the scene was deemed safe, officers moved in to detain him, placing his hands in handcuffs behind his back, and conducted a search of his person according to proper procedure. The firearm believed to have been used in the incident was also recovered for forensic analysis. The entire arrest took place in a short time frame without resistance. Alexander was placed in a patrol car and transported to headquarters for questioning. Meanwhile, investigators remained at the scene, finalizing the collection of the last pieces of evidence before beginning the direct interrogation stage with the suspect. For the investigative team, handcuffing Alexander marked only the end of the scene containment phase. The more critical question at this point was whether what he would confess would align with the totality of the evidence police had gathered. Inside the cold interrogation room of the Lansing Police Department, Alexander James Aydelotte sat across from experienced detectives. Initially, the 20-year-old suspect remained silent, attempting to maintain a calm demeanor and evasively denying any involvement in the death of Diamonique Jackson. He offered fragmented timelines to create a false alibi. However, the detectives were in no rush. They applied an evidence-based interrogation psychological strategy, step by step presenting printouts of cell tower maps, extracted security camera footage, and DNA analysis results. Confronted with the unyielding objective truth, Aydelotte's calm facade began to crack. His tension was evident in his rapid breathing and trembling hands. Sensing the suspect's psychological collapse, the detective leaned forward and asked the decisive question. "Alexander, the data doesn't lie. You were inside that car. What actually happened between you and Diamonique?" Unable to continue making excuses, Aydelotte slumped his head onto the table. He admitted to being inside the vehicle and confessed that a spontaneous argument had driven his anger to its peak, leading to the impulsive decision to pull out his gun and shoot the victim. This confession was the final piece of the puzzle, completing the full picture of the case, opening the path to bringing the matter into the legal spotlight. In the weeks following the shooting, investigators collaborated with the Genesee County Prosecutor's Office to review the entire case file to assess whether the evidence met the standard for prosecution under Michigan state law. Rather than relying on a single piece of evidence, the case was constructed from multiple independent evidence streams, forming a legally tight chain. The first group of evidence came from the crime scene. The handgun recovered after the incident became a crucial piece of physical evidence and was sealed for forensic testing. Alongside this were the markings on the vehicle, the positions of the spent shell casings, and the scene processing results, which allowed investigators to accurately reconstruct the sequence of the shooting. The second group of evidence consisted of the forensic autopsy findings. The medical examiner's office report confirmed that Diamonique Shardai Jackson died from a gunshot wound. This conclusion matched the evidence recovered at the scene and ruled out the possibility of death from other causes. In addition to physical evidence and forensic findings, witness statements also played an important role in completing the file. In particular, information confirming that the vehicle returned to the area solely to feed dogs, with no evidence indicating that the occupants inside the vehicle used or pointed a weapon at Alexander James Aydelotte, became a factor given special consideration by the prosecution when evaluating self-defense claims. After cross-referencing all physical evidence, forensic findings, and statements from relevant parties, the prosecutor's office concluded that the case met the necessary burden of proof to officially charge Alexander James Aydelotte. From that point on, the case transitioned to the court proceedings phase, where the entire evidence system would be presented before a jury for consideration under U.S. law. After months of investigation and case preparation, the trial officially commenced at the Genesee County Circuit Court. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere grew heavy as the victim's family and those involved quietly followed every proceeding. For them, this was not just a criminal trial, but also the moment to await a final answer from the justice system. Throughout the arguments, the prosecution focused on proving that Alexander James Aydelotte firing into the vehicle did not meet the conditions for self-defense under Michigan state law. Conversely, the defense attempted to argue that the defendant believed he was facing danger following a prior act of vandalism. Two opposing arguments were presented to the jury, while all final decisions rested on the evaluation of the evidence presented at trial. Following deliberations, the jury returned to the courtroom. As the verdict was announced, the room fell almost completely silent. Alexander James Aydelotte was found guilty of first-degree premeditated murder, along with 2 counts of assault with intent to murder and 3 counts of felony firearm. This verdict meant the jury rejected the self-defense argument put forward by the defense. For the family of Diamonique Shardai Jackson, this was an important step on the journey toward justice after an irreplaceable loss. However, according to available public records, at the time the verdict was delivered, the final sentencing hearing had not yet been announced, meaning the official sentence for Alexander James Aydelotte remained pending the court's decision in the next procedural phase. The shooting that claimed the life of Diamonique Shardai Jackson drew attention from the local community in Flint and many other areas across the state of Michigan. Across social media platforms, many expressed their sorrow over the passing of the 22-year-old young woman while offering condolences to the victim's family and friends. The obituary posted by the Sheldon T. Banks Funeral Home also received numerous tributes, in which many remembered Diamonique by her affectionate nickname Pie and shared memories of a girl who always brought positive energy to those around her. The case also sparked discussions regarding gun usage in situations where the user claims to be acting in self-defense. Many voiced the opinion that any decision to use a firearm must be evaluated against strict legal standards, as a single misjudgment can lead to irreversible consequences. According to available public sources, there is no indication of significant public debate surrounding the jury's guilty verdict. For Diamonique's family, what they longed for most was not post-trial debates, but justice served through the proper due process of the U.S. judicial system. The case closed with a life sentence for the perpetrator, yet the questions surrounding this tragedy still leave many reflecting. A single moment of uncontrolled impulse took the life of a young woman and completely destroyed the future of another young man. In your view, is a life sentence without the possibility of parole for Alexander Aydelotte truly fitting and a source of complete justice for Diamonique and her family? Do you have any other perspectives or thoughts on the developments of this case? Please leave your opinions in the comment section below. The story of Diamonique Pie Jackson ending at the age of 22 is not merely a page of criminal records closed in a Michigan state court, but an irreplaceable, permanent void for those left behind. Behind the statistical figures and stern legal clauses lies a cruel reality: one life lost and another life buried behind prison bars. The greatest lesson remaining from this tragedy lies in the price paid for a lack of emotional control in enclosed spaces. The line between an ordinary argument and a tragedy can sometimes be as thin as a single trigger pull. When a spontaneous argument combines with the presence of a weapon, all reason is extinguished in an instant. A single reckless moment not only robs another person of their future from a distance of a few feet, but also manually erases oneself from human society. The incident is also a quiet warning about the inherent risks in everyday relationships. Recognizing danger from impulsive behavior, proactively stepping back, or removing oneself from suffocating spaces when conflict escalates is never a sign of weakness. It is a vital survival skill. Life has no rewind button. Once a bullet leaves the barrel, all remorse or words of "if only" become entirely meaningless in the face of the cold truth of death. Thank you for taking the time to watch the entire video. If you found this content helpful and would like the channel to continue bringing you thoroughly researched cases from official sources, don't forget to click like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming videos.